A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope everybody is doing well by the grace of Allah. Welcome to the session Phrase Structure Rules for the course English 3113 Introduction to Linguistics I. Let us just have a recapitulation of our last session. In our last session, we talked about IC analysis, deep structure versus surface structure, and some related issues. IC analysis, as we found, provides us the immediate constituents, and finally we reach the ultimate constituents. But the problem is that following IC analysis, which is a model of structural grammar, we cannot have any new sentence, or it cannot generate a new structure beyond the ultimate constituents. On the other hand, we also talked about the generative grammar, that the grammar or the rules which provide us the option to extend beyond the rules, which enable us to generate new sentences, new structures with the limited set of structure, because we human beings are able to produce an infinite number of sentences or structures using a finite set of structures that we have been taught or we know. And of course, it is not possible that a human being is taught all these structures that he or she would be using in his or her life. So in that picture, we have the generative grammar, and phrase structure rules or phrase structure grammar is a model of generative grammar. And phrase structure grammar is used to analyze sentences, particularly the structure of the sentences. It consists of phrase structure rules to show how a sentence can be broken into its various parts or constituents, like IC analysis. But in addition to what IC analysis can do, phrase structure rules show how each constituents or each of the parts can be expanded. And the representation of this system is called P marker or phrase marker. It provides information of sentence structure, which is able to state how new sentences can be generated. The main proponent of this generative theory was Chomsky, but later on it was modified by some other followers of Chomsky. And the generative grammar or phrase structure grammar was developed on the limitations of IC, that is immediate constituent theory, because we found that IC analysis has some limitations, but through generative grammar, Chomsky and his followers tried to overcome those limitations. Here is a phrase structure tree diagram. I'm sure that you are familiar with this diagram. We have the sentence, which consists of an NP, that is noun phrase, and a verb phrase. And the noun phrase consists of a determiner and a noun, the man. And the verb phrase consists of a verb and an NP. The NP has two elements, determiner and a noun. And you have got the sentence, the man followed the girl. So you see that the sentence consists of two phrases, noun phrases and verb phrases. In another term, we call them subject and predicate. And you see that in verb phrase, you have a verb and a noun phrase. And you see that both the noun phrases have the same structure, determiner plus noun. Thus, sentence consists of noun phrase and verb phrase. Verb phrase consists of verb and noun phrase. Noun phrase consists of determiner and a noun phrase. Here, verb is followed, determiners are da and I, and nouns are man and girl. So I'm sure that you remember that in T diagram we have nodes, that is the hierarchical domination, and then under each node you have two branches. So here these rules do not generate only this particular sentence, the man followed the girl. So we have a rule here that the noun phrase should be at the beginning, then you have a verb phrase, and the verb phrase can consist of verb and noun phrase, and again the noun phrase follows the same structure of another noun phrase. And we have got the sentence, the man followed the girl. And here, as we have D and A are as determiner and man and girl are as noun, we can have a number of sentences using the same structure or rules. A girl followed the girl followed a man followed a man, and you can have a number of them indeed. So you have a rule, and following the rule you can generate new sentences, but you have to cling to the basic rule. Phrase structure rules specify the well-formed structures of a sentence. So phrase structure rules give us the options to form correct, grammatically correct sentences. How phrases are formed is governed by rules which are called phrase structure rules. So phrase structure rules refer to the rules which govern the phrases that we have in the sentences. A tree must match the phrase structure rules to be grammatical. If a sentence has to be grammatical, it has to follow or match the tree, the basic tree having the phrase structure rules. In ordinary sentences, we have these phrase structure rules, that is, sentence consists of noun phrase and verb phrase, and noun phrases consist of maybe a noun only. Verb phrases can consist of only a verb, or prepositional phrases can consist of a preposition and a noun phrase. And here you see, in prepositional phrases you have a preposition plus noun phrase, and following the rules of noun phrase you can have only a noun after the preposition. Here is another example. A noun phrase can be an article followed by noun. So you have a noun phrase here in which the noun follows an article, the, bus. So we can say that is the rule says the NP, that is noun phrase, consists of article and a noun. So you can say the rule is a noun phrase can be an article followed by a noun. An article followed by a noun is a noun phrase. So whenever you use a noun phrase, you have to follow this rule. A verb phrase, on the other hand, may be a verb followed by a noun phrase, which may be followed by a prepositional phrase. The prepositional phrase may or may not be there. So we can say that verb phrase consists of a verb and a noun phrase. Or the verb phrase can consist of a verb and a prepositional phrase, where verb phrase can consist of verb, noun phrase and prepositional phrase. So you see, some elements are mandatory and some elements are not. As you have prepositional phrase within bracket, it means that this is optional. That is, a verb phrase can consist of only a verb or a verb plus noun phrase. In fact, the noun phrase is also optional, as shown in the following trees. Here you have a noun phrase as subject, and you have a verb phrase, then you have a verb plus prepositional phrase. That is, in this verb phrase you don't have any noun phrase. The man fled from the posse. Fled from, so you don't have the noun phrase after the verb because this is not a transitive verb. But in the verb phrase you have a verb and a prepositional phrase, and the prepositional phrase consists of a preposition and a noun phrase, and again the noun phrase consists of an article and a noun. Here you have the sentence consisting of a noun phrase and a verb phrase consisting of only a verb without any noun phrase or prepositional phrase. Here noun phrase consists of article and noun. So in the first one, a verb phrase consisting of verb plus a prepositional phrase. That is, verb phrase equal to verb plus prepositional phrase. And in example 2, verb phrase consists of a verb alone. So we can say that this is the rule. Verb phrase consists of a verb, an NP and a PP. That is noun phrase and a prepositional phrase. But you see, both NP and PP are within brackets. It means that verb only is the mandatory element of a verb phrase, but noun phrase and prepositional phrase are not mandatory, they are optional. Other rules of English that are evident are sentence equal to noun phrase plus verb phrase, and prepositional phrase equal to preposition plus noun phrase. Growing trees. The relationship between phrase structure rules and phrase structure trees. There is a relationship between them. Here you have a sentence consisting of noun phrase and verb phrase. So you have sentence, the tree shows that sentence consists of a noun phrase and verb phrase, where noun phrase equal to article plus noun and verb phrase equal to verb plus NP plus PP, and you see the elements which are within brackets, they are optional. And here prepositional phrase again consists of preposition plus noun phrase, and this noun phrase should follow the rule of this noun phrase as well. So you see the same rule is applied everywhere. There are 4 rules of verb phrase that are abbreviated by parentheses. Like, that is, if you want to have a verb phrase, you can have only a verb. This is a tree. Or a verb phrase can have a verb and a noun phrase. Verb and a noun phrase. A verb phrase can have only a verb plus prepositional phrase, no noun phrase is here. And a verb phrase can consist of a verb, both a noun phrase and a prepositional phrase. So a verb phrase can consist of or can be of any of these forms. So as per your necessity you can use any of them, but you should cling to the rule. In the phrase structure rules there are 2 immediate constituents. I'm sure that you understand or you remember what immediate constituents are. That is IC. You have phrasal categories, that is, it gives us the phrases, noun phrases, verb phrases, prepositional phrases, and lexical categories, the words. The phrasal categories occur to the left of the arrow in a phrase structure rules. So here these are the phrasal categories, verb phrase, and they occur, you see that they occur to the left of the arrow. And in lexical categories you have the noun, article, that is the lexical form, and they occur to the right of the arrow. So you can say that phrase structure trees always have lexical categories at the bottom, since the rules must apply until no phrasal categories remain unexpanded. That is, first you have to determine the phrases, phrasal categories, and then you have to go down to the phrasal categories and divide them, and only when you cannot expand the phrasal categories anymore, you can have the lexical categories. And the lexical categories are traditionally called parts of speech, which include, say, articles, nouns, verbs, prepositions, adjective, adverbs, and so on. There are some trees which may not grow or which won't grow. The following word sequences and their corresponding structures could not constitute English sentences. Say, in a sentence, if you have only these two elements, the man, and if you say this is a sentence, then we can say that this sentence consists of only a noun phrase, because you have only an article and a noun, but it lacks a verb phrase. So this is not a sentence, because it does not conform to the phrase structure rules, because it has only one noun phrase. But an English sentence should have a noun phrase and a verb phrase to be a sentence, grammatically correct sentence. So this tree cannot grow more or further. In example 2, saw a buffalo. Here you have, if you say that this is a sentence, so this sentence consists of only a verb phrase. And in the verb phrase you have a verb and noun phrase. So it conforms to the elements, has all the elements of a verb phrase, but it does not have all the elements mandatorily required for being a sentence, because it does not have a noun phrase. That is why this is not a sentence, and this cannot grow or this cannot be expanded to have a or to be a sentence. But of course you can say that, okay, sometimes we use only a verb in imperative form and which we call a sentence. No, in imperative sentence you have a verb and you have a noun phrase as well at the beginning, but the noun phrase is not presented or uttered, or the noun phrase is elicited. Also, you cannot have a sentence like saw a buffalo the man. That is, you cannot change the order of noun phrase and verb phrase, because the rules say that you have to have the noun phrase at the beginning and verb phrase after the noun phrase. But if you say the verb phrase comes before the noun phrase, saw a buffalo the man, that is, noun phrase and verb phrase are in wrong order, so it is not a sentence again. So this sentence would not accept as well-formed English sentence, except where some context allowed them. Like this sentence might be in answer to the question, who saw a buffalo? You can say the man, that is, you have only a noun phrase. But indeed, you have saw a buffalo, but this section is elided. But the basic pattern underlying all these is noun phrase and verb phrase. That is, the sentence consists of a noun phrase and verb phrase, whether they are explicitly expressed or not. Here are some more phrase structure rules. There are sentences of English whose structure is not accounted by the phrase structure rules given so far, including the man with the hat smiled. Here you have the noun phrase, but in the noun phrase you have an article, noun phrase, and a prepositional phrase. So you see that a prepositional phrase here is a part of a noun phrase. And the prepositional phrase has a preposition and a noun phrase again. So noun phrase is more than just an article followed by a noun. The noun phrase rule stated earlier cannot account for, since the noun is modified by the prepositional phrase with the hat. And we know that prepositional phrase can be used as an adjective phrase or mainly adverbial phrase. A large fierce black dog looked out the window. Here you have the noun phrase where you have a noun and an article, but the noun is preceded by three adjectives: large, fierce, black, dog. This tree indicates the need to change the noun phrase rule to contain optional adjectives. An article, that is, a noun, is a mandatory part of a noun phrase. So you can have article or determiner, and also you can have adjectives, as many as you need. That is, you can have 0, 1 or more adjectives, but it does not sound nice when you have more than 3 adjectives just before a noun modifying the noun. But it's up to you, because using too many adjectives before a noun makes the language cumbersome and ambiguous as well. So it says that the noun phrase can consist of article and a number of adjectives before the noun, which are optional. An infinite number of noun phrase rules, including the following, can be formed. So you can say a noun phrase consists of an article and noun, like the cat. Article 1 adjective and noun, the big cat. Article 2 adjectives and noun, the big black cat. Article 3 adjectives and noun, the big black shaggy cat. So this is important that we understand the head of phrases. So in each phrase you have a head. In noun phrase you have a noun. In verb phrase you have a verb, and all other elements are optional. The summary of all the phrase structure rules for the grammar of English is that sentence consists of noun phrase and verb phrase. So noun phrase and verb phrase are mandatory part of a sentence. Noun phrase consists of article and noun, and these are optional, and this asterisk mark indicates that you can have 1, 2, 3 or more adjectives. Also they are optional because they are within, that is adjective and prepositional phrases, they are within brackets. You can have verb phrase as having only a verb, which is mandatory, but noun phrase and prepositional phrases are optional. And again, prepositional phrase consists of a preposition and a noun phrase. That is, both of them are mandatory. But in noun phrase, again, you can have article, adjectives, noun and prepositional phrase. Many generalizations about English are contained in these rules. Put more succinctly, X phrase always contain of X. That is, if you say noun phrase, so the noun phrase should always contain a noun, where X stands for noun. So in noun phrase you have to have a noun, and you should say that this is a noun phrase. Or if you say this is a prepositional phrase, it should have a preposition. If you say it's a verb phrase, it should have a verb. The X of an X phrase, that is, say a noun of a noun phrase, or a verb of a verb phrase, or a preposition of a prepositional phrase, is called the head of that phrase. Unfortunately, and very regularly, phrase structure grammar has got some limitations. Phrase structure grammar, like IC analysis, is a grammar of segmentation, separation, and categorization. Like noun phrase, verb phrase, you categorize the elements into different phrases, and it depends on taxonomic model, and it gives us a list of elements or grammar points, which is a list of elements or inventory of elements. Phrase structure grammar is strong in giving a structural description, but deficient in generative capacity. It does generate, but to a very little extent. It is incapable of accounting all the intuitions of native speakers, that is, all the synonymities. For example, in native speaking or native English, we use language, or we use these structures in a very variegated way, depending on the discourse, depending on the context. It is not that every time we follow strictly the rules of phrase structure grammar. That is why it cannot explain all the structures used by the native speakers in a way which is expressed in phrase structure rules strictly. A phrase structure grammar cannot adjunct, that is add, delete or permute. For example, as I gave you the example of an imperative sentence. So I go, and you can say go. How do we get this go from I go? That is a matter of deletion. Sometimes we have to change the elements for the contextual purpose to get the semantic aspect work better effectively, but it cannot get hold of all this deletion and permutation or adjunct. Phrase structure grammar faces difficulties regarding describing syntactic structures of questions, negatives, passives, etc., because they do not follow the phrase structure rule of a sentence. because in question you don't have the noun phrase and the verb phrase in order, in negatives too, in passives as well. And they cannot grasp deep meaning, the meaning underlying it. I'm sure that you remember the differences between surface structure and deep structure. There is a meaning underneath or underlying the surface structure. It cannot also grasp the crucial notions and cannot prevent false ungrammatical structures. For example, the police diverted the traffic. The traffic was diverted by the police. The traffic was diverted by the country road or by a country road. So you see that here the traffic was diverted by the police. This is a passive voice. And again, the traffic was diverted by a country road. But by the police and by a country road, they do not add the same meaning to this sentence. Phrase structure grammar ignores semantic and case relation. There is a relationship between the country road and was diverted or the traffic and police and the traffic. And also it does not consider the semantic aspect, the meaning aspect of the sentence. It runs into difficulty in understanding remote relationships and in dealing with discontinuous constituents. He is difficult to understand. He is difficult to live with. You see that here you have with after live, but indeed this with is related to the subject he. This with modifies the noun or pronoun he. This is called discontinuous constituent. But it cannot say, or it cannot, the phrase structure grammar cannot explain this structure with how can restrictions, because you cannot go beyond the rules, and as a result the language becomes cumbersome, complex and unelegant. Hope that you have understood